video, we will demonstrate how to use a Claude skill with an MCP connection to automate and replace a traditional manual data entry process. Traditionally, expense data from receipts must be captured manually. In some cases, OCR software may help extract the information, but the data still needs to be reviewed. You would typically also need to verify the expense against company policies and spending limits outlined in the employee handbook, or rely on rules you already remember. Additionally, if the expense is related to a project, you may also need to check whether it meets the allocated project budget or requires a specific approval route. After that, you often need to perform additional calculations and manually enter the data into the correct fields within the user interface of your accounting or expense management system. Now let's emulate the process with our Claude skill expense agent. You simply attach the dinner receipt in the chat area and ask Claude to proceed. The agent immediately recognizes that this is an expense entry request and automatically activates the relevant skill to handle the process. The agent quickly captures the data from the receipt and asks for the employee's name. Once the name is confirmed, the agent triggers the first MCP tool to retrieve the employee's employee ID and department ID. Next, the agent asks a few simple questions, such as whether the expense is related to a project. We simply respond as we normally would. The agent then triggers another MCP connection to retrieve the available project list for us to select from. The data is displayed in a table view for easy review. Let's enter the project code P1. The agent also then checks the company expense policy using the employee handbook and retrieves the latest exchange rate through MCP again. The system is smart enough to detect that draft beer in the receipt is an alcoholic item and therefore a non-reimbursable expense. It asks for permission to proceed with the expense claim whilst excluding that item. After you confirm, the agent triggers another MCP connection to automatically create the expense report in the Oracle NetSuite ERP system. Finally, the agent connects to an MCP tool once more to update the total project cost in Google Sheets. Once the process is completed, the agent provides a summary of the expense entry with key highlights for review. When we open the expense record in Oracle NetSuite, we can see that the relevant data has been filled in automatically. The system has selected the correct expense category and account, created a detailed line description, and added the related project reference. At the same time, the Google Sheet that tracks the project's daily costs is updated automatically. Looks amazing, right? And the setup is not as difficult as you might think. To make this work, we developed a Claude skill to teach the agent how to perform the process, along with several MCP connections that allowed it to interact with your preferred SaaS applications, such as Oracle NetSuite and Google Sheet. Inside the Claude settings under Capabilities, you can customize and add your own skills. These skills essentially act as a standard operating procedure, guiding the agent through the expense submission process step by step. The skill defines what the agent should do, what information it should check, and which tools it should use. For example, the agent can call the appropriate MCP connectors to retrieve data, perform validations, and submit information to external systems. It can also reference materials such as expense policies, limits, and internal rules to perform further analysis and validation. As well as the skill itself, another important component is the MCP connectors. In our example, we used 4 different MCP connections, which each connected to separate MCP servers that interacted with Oracle NetSuite ERP and Google Sheets. Together, these components enabled the agent to automatically retrieve data, validate policies, and create expense records across multiple systems. Now let's move to the last part of the settings, which you might not immediately notice but is very important, the MCP server's configuration. To reduce development effort and keep the setup simple, we use Cyclr's MCP Pass, which handles authentication, standard connectivity, and multi-tenancy management for MCPs and integrations. Inside the Cyclr Management Console, under Account Management, you can create isolated environments to manage discrete MCP servers and connections. Within the company account, administrators can also create sub-accounts, for example, individual employees. In our example, under the profile of Harry Wilson, you can see 4 MCP servers already installed, supporting the connections used by the Claude agent shown earlier in the demonstration. If we look at one of these MCP servers, we can see that administrators can select which API endpoints are exposed. This helps limit unnecessary context and reduce risk by, for example, preventing high-risk operations such as delete methods being available to normal users. In addition, audit and system logging are critical for enterprise environments when working with AI agents. Through the MCP server, all connections and activities are recorded, enabling future auditing, monitoring, and compliance checks. In this video, we have shown how Claude Skills, MCP connectors, and MCP servers work together to enable secure and automated expense management using an AI agent. If you'd like to build similar agents or have any questions about MCP connections, please feel free to get in touch. We look forward to connecting with you. See you next time.